Very good evening to you. It has just gone 11 o'clock. You are listening to Late Nights with Tom Swarbrick here on LBC. If you've just joined the programme, hope we find you well. It was around this time yesterday evening that we got the first reports of Iranian missiles targeting bases in Iraq. Two bases, one in Erbil and one in the west of Iraq, a huge base that held mainly American soldiers, but also British ones as well. It was what we'd all come to expect after what we'd seen over the last few days, the retribution from the Iranian regime for the killing of General Soleimani by the Americans. As you know, fortunately, no lives have been lost. Earlier on today, the President of the United States took the opportunity to see what the Iranian regime had done as being proportionate and therefore offering an off-ramp to the escalation, saying that sanctions were going to be imposed on the Iranian regime, that they were never, under him as president, going to be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, but another strike from the US is off for now. I think over the last few days we have learnt an awful lot more about Iran, about the regime, about potentially some of their aims and what they do around the world. And in those discussions we had an astonishing call from a man called Hussein, who rang the programme a few nights ago to tell us a story of what the regime actually did do to him under General Soleimani and his Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the proscribed terrorist organisation that he was in charge of. I'm delighted to say that Hussein has agreed very kindly to come into the studio tonight. Hussein Abedini, a member of the Parliament in Exile of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, who, Hussein, as you described to us the other night, survived an assassination attempt by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Welcome to LBC. Thank you for coming in this evening. I want to talk about what you make of the situation in Iran as it stands tonight and how we got to this point. But I can't let this go without asking you, first of all, to explain what happened to you in the March of 1990.
First of all, thank you very much, Tom, and I am grateful for having me in this show. I was the target of an assassination attempt by the Quds Force, which is the extraterritorial force of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And this Quds Force is the elite force of the Revolutionary Guards, responsible for all the extraterritorial terrorist operations of the regime. They have been behind, of course, in coordination with the Minister of Intelligence of the Iranian regime. Mm-hmm. They have been responsible for more than 450 major terrorist operations throughout the world, including some 300 Iranian dissidents, human rights activists who have been assassinated by the death squads of the regime throughout the world. And as a result of these terrorist operations, thousands of people have been executed and thousands more have been maimed and wounded. That includes, the explosion of the Marine headquarters in Lebanon, the explosion of the Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires, as hundreds of people were killed and maimed as a result of that.
And it includes you.
Yes, exactly.
So talk us through, if you don't mind.
Yes.
There you are in a car sitting next to a driver as he's taking you to, I understand, Istanbul airport.
Exactly.
We're talking March the 14th, 1990.
That is true, yes.
What's going on?
Well, I was in Istanbul for a humanitarian mission. I was there in coordination with the human rights organizations to help some Iranian refugees who were to be deported by the Turkish government because they had crossed the mountainous regions and they had come to Turkey. And as a result of behind-the-scene deal, they wanted to be sent back. So I was there to help these refugees. When I was driving my car, I was sitting next to a driver going to Istanbul airport, and it was in Yeşilköy, part of Istanbul, when my car was ambushed in broad daylight. It was 4 p.m., and just a car, banged to our car and blocked the road, and another car pinned us from behind. And immediately two men jumped out of the car. One of them was the commander of this death squads, and started running toward my car. And before he reached the car, it was just a couple of meters away from my car. When I tried to stop him, I only had a briefcase. So I jumped out of the car and tried to rush at him when he started shooting. And a bullet hit my chest, very close to my heart, very narrowly missed my heart. And the bullet nearly destroyed my liver. and everything was becoming dark, and I recognized the man was approaching me with a revolver in his hand, and before he wanted to fire a final shot, a coup de grace, but the bullet miraculously jammed in the gun, and I could still stand on my feet, and they saw I was bleeding all over. So they thought, it's enough, and the traffic had started to run again. They had closed the road
and
for this assassination attempt.
You can see all this in your mind's eye still, even after being shot twice by these people. You can still see their faces.
Yes, I was, of course, in a near coma condition because it was only 3 minutes away, the hospital. I was taken to International Hospital of Istanbul, and even when I was in hospital, they tried twice to come and finish me off because they didn't want me to speak to the police and tell the world what happened.
So people tried to come into the hospital to kill you whilst in hospital?
Yes, I have written about this, and once they had hired 2 people who came to the hospital, and they pretended to be my friends at the university, but before they managed to enter my room, my true friends arrived at the same time, and these people just escaped from the scene. The second time, the mother of the Turkish president, Turgut Özal, at the time was at the same hospital. And president wanted to come and visit his mother, so they sealed off, the whole area, and they found out another group of police, was coming to the hospital. But later they found out, that it was the Iranian regime who wanted to come and finish me off. So this, I received more than 160 pints of blood, and I had to go through many, many surgeries. They remove, different parts of my organs, and they put my liver, 20% of the liver which was left, they put it in a plastic mesh. And since then, I have been suffering, as a result of this brutal attack.
I noticed that you write about what happened to you, that the doctors gave you odds of survival as 1 in 100. So the chances of you being here today were very, very remote. Have you been a target since you came out of hospital, since 1990? You've been threatened by the IRGC since then?
Well, I have been threatened by the regime, and we know this is the price of freedom, and the regime has always tried, to use opportunity for killing the Iranian dissidents. Some of my very good friends, have died in the hands of the Iranian regime. The man who was with me on the day that my car was ambushed, he was later himself kidnapped. Akbar Qurbani, who was a very good friend of mine, 3 years after the incident of my life, he was kidnapped, and his mutilated body was found in a jungle in the suburbs of Istanbul. So this Quds force, which was led by Qassem Soleimani, is a very, very brutal force, and they have been responsible for thousands of extrajudicial killings, as well as hundreds of thousands of killings in Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, and all over the Middle East.
Do you still consider your life at risk from them now?
Well, I think so, and the regime tried just last year. They wanted to explode a very huge gathering of 100,000 Iranians who were having, their annual gathering. It was by the Iranian opposition, democratic opposition of the NCRI, and there were hundreds of American and British and other European and different countries' personalities. Many members of the British Parliament, but they were in that gathering.
Is this in Britain?
No, that was in Paris when they tried, to an Iranian so-called diplomat who was in charge of the terrorist activities of the regime in Europe. He was behind this, and he gave, actual bombs to 2 other agents who were carrying it, to this gathering. And fortunately, it was this was found out, by the police, and those people were arrested. And this so-called Iranian diplomat, Asadullah Assadi, was arrested, and he's now behind the bars, waiting for trial.
So as you have displayed so graphically, the threat from the Quds force, the extra territorial part of the IRGC, is very, very real, even in this country?
Yes, exactly, and this is why we have informed the British authorities, and they are aware that this threat is very serious. This regime, whenever it finds the opportunity, is after its its dissidents. And the Iranian embassy here in London is working as a spying center, on the life of many Iranians.
You think?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is exactly the work of the Iranian regime's embassy in this country and in many other European countries. As we are talking, many Iranian agents have been arrested in different European countries, and they are going through, court and trials at the moment for the terrorist activities.
I want to come on to some of the questions that people have for you. Plenty of people are getting in touch tonight. 0345 6060 973 is if you want to put a question to Hussein. I also want to ask you a bit more about why you were targeted and the kinds of things that you were doing and saying about the regime that made you such a target. But I can't not ask about the threat level now in this country from Iranian state-backed operators. There's been lots of talk about sleeper cells and about people that could be awoken as a result of tensions between Iran and the US. Do you think that is more or less likely as we sit here tonight, given everything that Donald Trump, the president, has said?
Well, I think, first of all, this regime is in a very, very weak position. We should look at this issue in a larger context, and why the regime, is so is doing all these threats and making all these rhetorics. After the recent uprising in Iran, as a result of which more than 1,500 people were brutally murdered in many protests, happening throughout Iran, and another 4,000 people being injured, 12,000 people have been arrested. Many people are going through very, very savage interrogation and torture at the moment. The regime is frightened of this mood because the main war is not between the regime and other international parties. The main war is at Iran and between the Iranian people and the mullah's regime. The Iranian people have risen up and they want to get rid of a brutal dictatorship which has executed more than 120,000 Iranians. And they have already said that they are frightened of an army of hungry people. The people who are suffering from poverty in a country like Iran, which is sitting on an ocean of oil, and Iran being the second biggest gas reserve holder in the world after Russia, but still more than 80% of Iranians are living below the line of poverty. 30,000 people had to sell their kidneys and their eye cornea and and many other organs of their bodies to make their ends meet.
I want to come on about to what it is the people of Iran, in your view, want to do about the regime and how that can be potentially assisted by countries that also want to see the regime fall. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Hussein Abedini joins me, member of the Parliament in Exile of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. We'll put more questions of yours to him and hear more about what he thinks about what's going to happen next in Iran after this. You're listening to Tom Swarbrick on LBC. The time now, 11:16.
LBC.
Parents, you know your child. You know the way they learn is different to others. And Inter High School knows this too. For 15 years, Inter High has specialised in providing a fully interactive, tailored online school, supporting your child to achieve their best results from primary school age through to A-level. To discover more about Inter High School, join their next online open evening on the 22nd of January. Register at interhigh.co.uk.
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
Tax. 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 Tax.
Is the thought of doing your tax return pecking away at you? The longer you leave it, the worse it gets. Don't keep ducking it.
Tax.
Do it by the 31st of January at gov.uk/self-assessment. And don't forget to pay what you owe.
At Argos, our sale is on and so much more. Go online to shop our range of amazing deals, including tech, toys and home. Plus, with up to half price on selected homewares and furniture, there is no better time to style up your home. Visit our website to shop our full range of deals. With Argos, you're good to go. Selected lines, conditions apply, subject to availability.
Pining for a new bed to kickstart 2020? Discover our more wooden double bed frame at Dreams. Its sturdy design will add natural and timeless flair to any bedroom. Plus, with a further reduction, it's only $349, saving you £100 until Tuesday at Dreams.
Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Text 84850.
11:18. I'm joined live in the studio by Hussein Abedini, member of the Parliament in Exile of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, who, as you've just been hearing, survived an assassination attempt by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in 1990. Quite brutal what they were trying to do to him, and as Hussein has described, to many others. There's so much that we could ask you, but I want to open it out to my listeners if I can. 0345 6060 973 is the number. You can also, it's worth saying, watch us tonight. We're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook as well. Let's come to Layla in London Bridge first of all. Hi, Layla.
Hi. First of all, I'm so sorry to hear Hussein's story, and I'm so happy that he survived. And thank you for inviting him to highlight this situation. I have basically two questions from Hussein. I want to ask him, why did the Iranian regime, despite world condemnation, international isolation, severe sanctions, why is it that the regime still resorts to terrorism, creating war, supporting Assad, dictatorship, creating war in Iraq, Lebanon, supporting Houthis in Yemen? What does the regime want to resolve and achieve by resorting to terrorism? And my second question to him is that he mentioned about the Iranian embassy. Why does not European countries close down this embassy to him to be the center of espionage and backing terrorist cells?
It's a very very good questions. Hussein.
Yes, thank you very much, Leila. And I think that this is a very, very important question. First of all, why the regime is doing this? This regime, because it's an unpopular regime. It's a brutal Islamic fanatic regime. And since they don't have the support of the people from the inception, this regime has been relying on two factors. First is the internal suppression, the executions and torture inside Iran, and using terrorism as a main tool to pursue their policies, expansionist policies. This regime really believes in creating another Ottoman-like empire. And Khomeini himself, the founder of this Islamic dictatorship, he said that Islam knows no boundaries. And this is why Khamenei, the present dictator of the regime, has said in many occasions that our Damascus, Beirut, Baghdad, and Sana'a, and other Arabic countries' capitals, they are the depths of their strategy. So the regime has been using these two tools to pursue its expansionist policies. So this regime is doing all these terrorist activities because they are frightened from the Iranian people. They wanted to divert the attention from Iran to other countries through IRGC and the Quds Force. But now the Iranian people, as I said, they have risen up, and the regime is really on a slippery slope toward its demise. So if I come to the second,
yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Second question as well, the Iranian embassy in many countries is being used as a center of espionage, and unfortunately, this so-called policy of rapprochement, which has been given different names at different junctures under different pretexts, has emboldened the regime to an extent which they are, one of the diplomats was carrying a bomb and crossed 3 European borders and gave the bomb to 2 other agents to carry it to Paris to detonate it in a 100,000 huge gathering in an ISIS style killing. This is what they were planning for. So this is why the Iranian regime's embassies are really working as a center of spying on Iranian dissidents and terrorist activities. And I think all the Western governments have to use a very, very robust policy vis-a-vis the regime.
We saw people from Russia expelled from embassies across the world, actually, after the attack in Salisbury that took place a little while ago. I wonder whether we might start seeing the same. Layla, thank you for your question. Must go to Simon in Hendon tonight. Hiya, Simon.
Hi. I'm really sorry what happened to Mr. Abedini. The trauma that he has to go through. I have a question because I saw a clip of this Soleimani, and he was in that clip. He was talking about a lady in a very foul and abusive language, and the lady was called Mrs. Mariam Rajavi. Well, my question is, why was General Soleimani so scared of Mrs. Rajavi, and who is Mrs. Rajavi? Can you please explain to us?
Well, thank you, Simon. Mrs. Mariam Rajavi is the president-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. This lady has got a plan for a future democratic government for Iran, and she is known as enemy number one of the mullah's regime. So no wonder why Qassem Soleimani, the second powerful man in the regime, has been speaking about Mrs.
she's
Rajavi.
the political opponent to the authority in Iran.
Exactly. Mariam Rajavi is this lady who is a Muslim woman, but she diametrically opposes the Islamic fundamentalists, and 5 of her close relatives have been executed by the Iranian regime. She's a very, very powerful woman who has been invited to many European countries.
And
yes.
is it her and is it your movement that has helped to, as you say, try and inspire a popular wave of opposition to the regime in Iran?
Yes, the supreme leader of the mullah's regime, as well as its president and other officials of the regime, have acknowledged the role of the Iranian resistance, the NCRI, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, and the PMOI, which is the main party within the NCRI, as being the engine behind the recent uprising in Iran. And they have highlighted, their importance.
And this is where at least 1,500 people were killed by their own government in the protests that happened a few weeks ago.
Including 400 women, exactly.
I wonder then, when you see the response from the Iranian regime, if there's not a compulsion for you to change tactics, given so many people are dying.
Yes, the regime is really, as I said, it's a regime which is at war with its people, and the people of Iran who have been suffering now for 40 years, and they are really fed up with this Islamic dictatorship. They just want to get rid of this dictatorship, and the uprising has been going on despite some ups and downs and some ebbs and flows. But the uprising is going on, and this is why the regime is so frightened.
But are more people willing to die to try and get regime change in Iran?
Well, the people have learned, that they are ready to pay a price. Already we have paid a very, very heavy price, for getting rid of this regime. This is a book. This is just a partial list of the execution victims, which includes more than 20,000 names and particulars of the victims.
So for people listening on the radio, not watching us tonight, you are holding up a book saying "Fallen for Freedom: 20,000 PMOI martyrs."
Exactly.
Presumably, you could have been one of them.
Exactly. This is the Iranian. This is as I said. This is just volume 1 out of 6. 120,000 people have been executed, and these are the people who were executed for their political beliefs, including many, many children and women. Children as young as 13 years of age have been executed.
And do you expect more people, sadly, appallingly, to be killed by the regime as protests start up again, potentially?
Well, I think the people of Iran are not going to really stop the protests against this regime.
And the regime is not going to stop killing them.
And the regime is not going to stop it. The regime is not going to go easily. But this is why we are asking the United Kingdom, the government, as well as many other European and Western governments, to stop supporting the mullahs and stand on the side of millions rather than the mullahs and support the Iranian people's uprising.
Let me go to Jackson in Dagenham. Jackson, hi.
Hello. It's nice for you to have this gentleman on, but this is just a propaganda thing, isn't it? Where is the finance for his organisation based in France coming from? And if you can give us that detail so that our listeners can do their own research. Because I don't believe that an organization such as yours can be just based in France for absolutely no reason without the French government being interested in you coming into power in Iran.
Okay, Jackson, thank you.
Well, thank you, Jackson. I think the Iranian people who have been ready to sacrifice so much for freedom, and we have already lost 120,000 people. So the same people who have given their best children for freedom of Iran, they are the ones who are supporting the NCRI. And this is a very good question. So financially, this organization, the Iranian Resistance, is getting its support from its own people, and it's not dependent on any other country. So you can do any sort of research you like.
So you get donations from people in Iran, or you get donations from Iranians in exile?
Well, the Iranian in exile, have been supporting the organization, and they have been financially supporting it, as well as many people who have lost all their belongings inside, who have sold all their belongings inside Iran, and they've sent it to the organization to continue the resistance against the regime. And many of them, unfortunately, bazaar merchants have been executed because they have been supporting the organization financially.
Are you supported financially by any governments?
No, we are not. And we have already announced this. Ms. Mariam Rajavi and the leaders of the Iranian resistance have said, we are not asking for money or for any government to come and do the job for us. Mm-hmm. We believe that the time has come to empower the Iranian people and their just resistance movement, because the time has come to get rid of this religious dictatorship and let the world to breathe freely.
I want to take squeeze one more call Please. In if I can, but there are lots of people getting in touch on text and Twitter as well. Mark texts, do you believe recent US actions have united the people of Iran and Iraq against the West?
Unfortunately, I don't, because I believe that the regime has this all has been a propaganda gimmick. There are in Tehran there are more than 12 million people, and the regime has hardly managed to bring 2% of that population to the streets for Qassem Soleimani. And these people...
you think that was set up? You think that was organised by the
exactly.
regime?
These people are the Revolutionary Guards. They are the Basij, which is the paramilitary force of the Revolutionary Guards. These are the people who are getting salary, from the government. There are different suppressive organs and their families, and of course some people have been forced. The high school children were forced to come to this Qassem Soleimani's funeral session. But the Iranian people have been dancing, they've been celebrating in their houses. I have videos which I can send it to you later on, as well as, Iraqi people and Syrian people who have been dancing and giving sweets, for the death of this brutal murderous dictator. Yeah.
You've talked a lot about the Iranian response, the response in Iran, what you want to see the regime in Iran, and how they should be held to account by the Iranian people. I want to come on, if I can, in a couple of minutes, if you don't mind staying with us for a little bit longer, about what the US, the UK and the Western Alliance can do to, in your view, help precipitate that. 0345 6060 973 is the number. You can watch us tonight, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube as well. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC with Hussein Abedini, Member of Parliament in exile of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. Let's get some news headlines at 11:31 tonight with Serena Farrow.
Buckingham Palace has warned the Duke and Duchess of Sussex that their desire to step back from the royal family will be complicated, with talks still at an early stage. It's understood the Queen and the Prince of Wales weren't aware of their decision. Prince Harry and Meghan claimed they'll work to become financially independent while continuing to fully support the Queen. Local reports claim 2 rockets have been fired into the Baghdad Green Zone, landing near the US Embassy, though it's not thought to have been hit. In a tweet, the Iraqi military claimed there weren't any casualties. And Donald Trump thinks Iran is now standing down after attacks last night on US military bases in Iraq. It was in retaliation to the United States killing a top Iranian general on Friday. LBC weather, rain in the south, which will spread further north overnight. Some heavy bursts across Wales with snow on northern hills, gales in the west and a low of 1 degree.
LBC.
How can it be fair that millions of people in the world are denied access to clean water? At WaterAid, we need your help to create an equal world. Whether you're from Morden or Madagascar, everyone, everywhere should have access to clean water, because clean water changes lives. You can help WaterAid change the picture. To find out how, search WaterAid Radio now.
At Argos, our sale is on and so much more. Go online to shop our range of amazing deals, including tech, toys and home. Plus, with up to half price on selected homewares and furniture, there is no better time to style up your home. Visit our website to shop our full range of deals. With Argos, you're good to go. Selected lines, conditions apply, subject to availability.
I'm Captain Obvious, and every day people book trips on Hotels.com that you will later hate like. A hate like is when you like Becky's picture of another waterfall even though you kind of hate it because she's there and you're on the train next to a mouth breather. Don't hate like Becky's trip. Book your own with Hotels.com. Hotels.com. Be there, do that.
Pining for a new bed to kickstart 2020? Discover our more wooden double bed frame at Dreams. Its sturdy design will add natural and timeless flair to any bedroom. Plus, with a further reduction, it's only $349, saving you £100 until Tuesday at Dreams. Air France. France is in the air.
With our new Oh La La deals, you don't just have to imagine. You can be strolling the sandy beaches of Cape Town, exploring the Forbidden City in Beijing, or discovering the Old Town in Quito. Oh la la, c'est magnifique! You can afford to let your imagination fly far, far away.
Air France. France.
La France
is in the air.
Book your flights via Paris by Tuesday the 21st of January at airfrance.co.uk.
This is LBC with Tom Swarbrick. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Let's come straight to your calls. Abdul's in Holborn tonight. Hi, Abdul.
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
I'm really well. Your thoughts?
Tom, I just want to ask a question for the gentleman. Firstly, I'm quite touched by his story to what's personally happened to him. But the first question I want to put to him is two questions, a two-part of this. The first one is, in the recent events of the funeral of the general, so many people have turned out in their millions, and 50-odd people, I think, have died and many got injured. Can he explain, or I want to understand his perspective to why that is?
Okay, and the second one, because I think Hussein has suggested that it was a turnout based on the Iranian regime's desire for people to turn out to the streets. But we will ask him. Your second question,
Sure.
Abdul?
The second question one is a clear one. When Mr. Trump said that the Iranians have stood down, does he believe, like me, that actually the followers of the general who he has been funding for years to do whatever's just happened to him, haven't even started their revenges yet? The Iranians, behind the scenes,
Okay, so the question really then is what Hussein thinks is coming next, and that's a very pertinent one. Hussein.
Yes, thank you, Abdul. I think these are very good questions. If I just add, one thing to the people who turned up, for Soleimani's funeral. What happened in Kerman, and the regime tried, to say it was an stampede. It was actually a scaffolding which collapsed, which they had made, for this funeral procession. And as a result of that, many people died. So this really had nothing to do with the huge number of people who turned up, for his funeral. And secondly, when Trump said, President Trump said that the Iranians are standing down, you're absolutely right. The Iranian regime has been supporting all sorts of proxy forces and these different Shia and Sunni terrorist groups. But the regime understands the language of firmness and language of robustness and decisiveness. Whenever they see that there is a strong language speaking to them, they retreat. As they say, when the push comes to the shove, they really have to abide, by the international rules.
But if Donald Trump was talking today not necessarily about regime change, but about changing in attitudes of the regime that are currently there, do you think that is possible?
Well, I really don't think that this regime is going to change its behavior. Nobody is asking President Trump or any other foreign power to come and change the regime. As I said, the Iranian people and their just resistance movement in what we believe is a democratic option is ready
How does that get imposed? As you say, this is a regime that's not going to change it. It is all powerful. It's killing its own people. What does the UK, the USA, France and Germany, what do they have to do in order to get what you think is best for the country?
Well, Tom, first of all, the regime is not a powerful regime. The regime is killing people because it's a very weak regime. The regime is doing all these atrocities in Syria, killing Syrian children, women, and hundreds of thousands of people by people like, Qassem Soleimani, because it's a weak regime. It's frightened from the Iranian people. We believe that the Iranian people can really establish a democratic government in Iran. What we are asking the Western governments, the UK government as well as the United States, is to stop supporting the regime and stop this policy of appeasement toward the Iranian regime. They should support the Iranian people and let the Iranian people decide their own future.
Okay. 0345 6060 973 is the number. Tim texts 84850. Tom, it's easy for Iranians living outside of Iran to talk against the regime, but the reality is that these Iranians do not have to live with the security situation inside the country, where the alternative is becoming yet another Iraq, Syria, Libya or Yemen. Most Iranians in Iran say that security is their number one priority. I'm an Englishman with an Iranian wife that has spent a lot of time inside Iran. Is that a fair summary?
Well, I think Tim should look at many Iranians. The Iranians were in the streets protesting in their hundreds of thousands. The Minister of Interior of the Iranian regime himself acknowledged that there were 200,000 people just in Tehran protesting, and in more than 100 districts of Tehran, the capital, there were protests going on. So the Iranian people, it's true that there is a very suppressive regime, but they have risen up and they are paying the price. 1,500 people have been killed.
If they don't see movement in the regime, if they see this falling off US or UK interests, aren't people going to take the stability even under a theocracy rather than losing their lives?
I think this is an Iranian problem which has an Iranian solution, and finally it's in the streets of Tehran and other cities throughout Iran that this is going to be resolved. And the Iranian people have now decided, to get rid of this dictatorship. And what we're asking the Western governments to do is to support the people and stop supporting the brutal dictators who are ruling
Let's come to Archie in Kensington. Hi, Archie.
Hello.
Hi. Far away.
I have a question. Do you think the European countries should withdraw from the nuclear agreement to put more pressure on Iran?
So this is the JCPOA that actually was mentioned by Donald Trump. In fact, Hussein, before we get your answer, let's just have a listen to what Donald Trump said about the Iran nuclear deal earlier.
The very defective JCPOA expires shortly anyway and gives Iran a clear and quick path to nuclear breakout. Iran must abandon its nuclear ambitions and end its support for terrorism. The time has come for the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Russia, and China to recognize this reality. They must now break away from the remnants of the Iran deal, or JCPOA. And we must all work together toward making a deal with Iran that makes the world a safer and more peaceful place.
Hussein, should the United Kingdom, Germany and France pull out of that deal?
Well, I think practically this deal is over, because the Iranian regime has already announced, that they are not going to respect and they are not going to abide by the limitations which were put, for the number of centrifuges, their capacity, the personal level of enriched uranium.
Wasn't that precipitated by Donald Trump pulling out of it?
Well, it was, but I think this deal in the first place...
So America killed it?
No, the United States didn't kill it. I think the regime was in a very, very weak position. They were not in a position to get any concessions from the Western governments. I believe that the regime was in a very weak position, and if the West was strong enough, they could dismantle the entire nuclear program of the Iranian regime. Iran is a very rich country. We've got a lot of oil and gas, and Iran doesn't need another, as the regime claimed, that this is another source of energy. But everybody knows that they were after a nuclear bomb. First of all, because they knew that the regime is very vulnerable and they wanted to use it for their own survival. So I
But
really
if Iran
believe
is-
that.
if Iran is a rich country anyway, based on its energy supply, people make the case about, well, why on earth were US, Germany, France and the UK paying the money to be part of this deal? Huge sums of money.
Exactly. I think it is really the time has come to activate the trigger mechanism of and also reinstate the 6 Security Council resolutions against the Iranian regime, because the lack of transparency for the possible military dimensions of the Iranian regime's nuclear program, and the regime keeping the brain center for its nuclear program, which is known as Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research, known as SPND, and also the details of its secret site for testing, which is known as Center for Research and Expansion of Technologies and Explosions and Impact, known as METFAS. And also that they haven't allowed the IAEA to go and ask questions and to find out.
So you have the
about
UK,
this.
France and Germany issuing a statement in the last few days saying that they're going to work to try and keep this deal alive. But there's a quote from Boris Johnson in September of last year to NBC saying, quotes, "There's one guy who can do a better deal and one guy who understands how to get a difficult partner like Iran over the line, and that is the President of the United States. So I hope that there will be a Trump deal, to be totally honest with you." Do you think that is the Prime Minister junking the JCPOA, possibly without letting Germany and France know?
Well, I think this is a very the JCPOA has only been used by the Iranian regime, and all the benefits which the Iranian regime got from the JCPOA was the money which they spent for the terrorist activities, for the meddling in the affairs of other Middle East countries.
Didn't see
So the regime has been...
But the inspections that went in that were independent, that verified that Iran was not enriching uranium at levels that were going to get them a bomb, all those things were inconsequential compared to the use of the money that came with it. You don't see any benefit.
But in addition to that, the United Nations has already said that there have been that the presence of highly enriched uranium traces, and the regime has never responded to this, and they have never allowed their scientists to be interviewed by the UN inspector. So that clearly shows that the regime is hiding, the true nature. The regime has never stopped its nuclear program projects.
We're going to run out of time, and I'm going to have to let you go. But I want to ask you one more question, which is, you've described the uprising that you think the Iranian people are about to launch on a regime that's going to be very, very difficult to dislodge, that only responds to strength. If it came down to it, would you take an all-out military change of regime orchestrated by the United States and possibly allies in order to get Iran into a different place?
No, as I said, we are not asking for another Iraq type of military invasion of Iran. But at the same time, we are against this policy of appeasement, which has really emboldened the regime and has encouraged it, to carry on with its murderous policies inside and outside of Iran. I think the Iranian people are rising up, and the regime is crumbling from within as well. There have been lots of desertions amongst the Basij forces, even amongst the high-ranking members of the Revolutionary Guards. Mm-hmm. And that clearly shows that the regime is weakening from inside, and the pressure from outside will help the Iranian people to have a democratic government replaced by this regime.
Thank you so much for coming in. I realise it's late and you've had a long day, but thank you so much for coming in. It was a great call you made the other night. I'm so glad you did it. I'm glad we could follow it up. Thank you. Hussein Abedini, member of the Parliament in Exile of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, as you heard earlier, surviving an assassination attempt by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in 1990. We're moving on. Coming up tonight, you won't be shocked to learn that almost all of tomorrow's front pages focus on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's decision to step back from royal duties and split their time between the UK and North America. After the break, we're off to the place where Meghan used to work, in Hollywood. I'll be getting the thoughts of a journalist who's an expert on both royalty and showbiz. They might be about to combine significantly. Tom Swarbrick on LBC. It's 11:47.
This is LBC.
Driving in London can be tough. I know. I drive for a living. But there's good news. Ola, the global ride-hailing app, is starting operations in London this January. My friends in Birmingham say it's a company that cares for its drivers. I'm excited about the 0% commission offer they're running all through this January and February. Oh, and you also get payments next working day, straight to your account. I've already signed up at olaride.uk, and I'm looking forward to earning more every day with Ola. When are you